So if you recall, Heidi identified one combination of her stratification work as one to explore as a persona. You may not have noticed her mention that term, and that's okay because that's the focus of our discussion today. So if you'll please access your stratification worksheet from our Friday session and take a minute to identify one of your groupings as the one you'll work with. That will be helpful as you pay attention as we work through our session today.
Question, Eric. I'm looking at the worksheet. So the persona, that is like an end result stratification, right? It describes like a certain series of demographic characteristics in our customers. Is that what we're after here?
Well, we're going to talk about what a persona is today.
Okay.
It's just that we're going to develop a persona from one of those intersections that you created from your stratification. So it's almost like stratification was part one for what we're going to do today. And we didn't really ask you to identify any particular combination. However, like Heidi did, she identified a combination of strata that we could use to identify someone we're going to focus on as a persona. And then I have a separate example that I'll use during today's session to show you how that worked for IQI. So we completed our stratification worksheets. Some people did both the faces and the spreadsheet. We did our teach to learns. Those are excellent. I appreciate the work you're doing with your conversations. The PDSA form, the intention is to have number 2, your second cycle completed by last week, and then you updated your theory of knowledge mind map. Today, we're going to talk about customer persona development. We actually have one of the articles that I shared with you was written by Frank Murdoch a few years ago. He published something that about persona and persona development. That process is used quite extensively at Menlo Innovations in Ann Arbor. Sometimes we refer to them. They're the book that's featured in they're the company that's featured in the book Joy Inc. That's highly recommended. And then today we'll be working on completing your PDSA number 3 plan for your next learning cycles. Persona development. We're going to talk about there's a large variety of possible customer strata, and individuals that we could look at and focus on. And what we're going to do is zero in on a particular individual to help us focus on perhaps a key element or key part of our customer audience. So in the example that we have for, that I'm going to use for IQI is we have both current and future members in the organization. We have people that could be public and private sector participants in their organizations. And then also people with lots of quality management experience and people with very little quality management experience. So when you look at stratification like this, what comes to mind, if you're IQI and you're trying to serve an audience, is it possible if when we start to look at the people who participate with us, that one approach is going to help everyone? No, I see you shaking your head, Eric. What's your thought here?
No, I don't think so, because, environment and perspective and experience skills are all going to play a part in interpreting exactly what you're communicating to them.
Yeah, and we find, first of all, current and future members, people who are already part of the organization have some exposure already to what IQI is doing. Future members, people have no idea. So there's some way that we might want to interact differently with them. And certainly, even in our group here, we have a mix of public sector and private sector organizations. And those organizations typically operate quite differently. They have a different set of basic ground rules. So, making change within organizations are different, and we might want to think about how we interact with people in those organizations differently. And then, of course, experience levels. Everybody here is pretty much, when we're dealing with Dr. Deming's work, a novice in his approach to quality management. Some of you have some experience in quality management methods, but we're introducing new ones. And so we have to consider those kind of levels. And so when we look at that, we can say, well, each one of these groupings has something different for us to pay attention to and serve in a different way, or maybe there's a grouping that's underserved. For this example, I'm going to identify this particular segment here. So what is this segment? What did I just highlight? What are the characteristics here of this particular grouping? What have I identified? Gloria, what do you see here?
It looks like they're in the private sector with low quality management experience and their current members.
Exactly. So that would present certain aspects to what we understand about them. It would help us understand, well, first of all, we need to operate as if they're beginners in this world. And then we also want to think about them as having some experience with the organization, so they're not new. And of course, the private sector means there's a variety of things that show up, some version of usually a profit motive. Those kind of things are one of the things that start to help us pay attention to. There's some concerns that people have within the private sector that are different from public sector. But that's not exactly what we're going to address. That's what stratification gives us. But however, we're going to find something else to work with to develop what we're going to call a persona. So I want you to select, take your look at your worksheet. And this is just for today's purposes. You may find that what you want to do is identify a different section in your worksheet today. However, and it may be, I think, Rocky, you said you were having a struggle seeing how the combinations that you put together were useful. I recommend trying different combinations. We listed a whole bunch of, about 30 different possible characteristics that you could slice and dice your customer base with. Try some different ones if you're not getting something useful out of the ones that you have. So in our combination here, we're looking at this particular section, and we're going to develop a precise description of your customer and what she or he wishes to accomplish. The persona development worksheet that I sent out may help. You're going to define this person by their goals. What is it that they want to accomplish? You're going to illustrate them with a photo. In fact, without a photo, this persona is and a name. Yeah, without a name or photo, this persona won't be useful. You want to identify your persona as an individual who is real for you. They're not a real person. You're not going and getting a biography of someone who is an actual customer, but you're illustrating a customer segment by developing a persona that epitomizes that segment. This one, Maylee Diggs, is our example that we're using for IQI, and she's in the private sector. She has low quality experience, management experience, but she also is a member of IQI. So on your worksheet, this is helpful. You don't have to use it, but it's very helpful. You can list their name, include their picture, a job description, their life situation, their goals, and even telltale, oh, that's a typo I have here. Even telltale let me correct that. even telltale quotes. There we go. And you want to allow this persona to become like a real person, a fellow member of the team. So as you describe them, work with them, put their picture up someplace as if they're a team member who's just not present with you at the moment. Remember, the persona is a user persona, not a buyer persona. So someone who's actually using what it is that's being delivered by your organization or by you. And remember also, as we work on this, the worksheet is not the assignment. The worksheet makes it easier to complete the assignment. So some people think that if they've completed this worksheet, that's sufficient. That's not what we're looking for. I'll show you what we're looking for. So in this one, I have a one-page draft of, here's what Maylee Diggs' situation is. She's here, I'll highlight this a little bit. Let's see, zoom in. So Maylee Diggs is a 46-year-old senior accountant in a communications technology firm located outside of Grand Rapids in Granville. She's been with her company 6 years and so on. So you can see some of the elements that are on your worksheet help you fill in some of these details. And then when you draft it, it's very easy for you to see. Now, one of the things you're looking for is, what are her goals? Her goals are to become a controller and eventually CFO in an organization. And she doesn't feel she has to remain with her current organization to achieve those goals. She's been a member of IQI and the Michigan Lean Consortium, and she's a member of Michigan Association of CPAs and the National Association of Black Accountants. She has 2 major work projects, and this is one of the issues we're looking for, is what's her current situation? What's the context within which she's operating that we're interacting with her around? And she needs to restructure the company's general ledger accounts and lead a team to bring business practices into line with stated organizational goals and procedures. So there's a challenge or a struggle that we've identified. And that's one of the things that's really key to making sure that your persona is a good one, understanding their goals and their context and their struggle. And then there's also, just for fun, it's fun to put, something about their personal background, because sometimes that adds to what are the issues they're dealing with. She's been married for quite a while. She's got grown sons who are on either academic scholarship or some other, path in their careers. And then she also has some volunteer work that she does. So she's quite accomplished. And so this is fun to draft a persona about a person like Maylee Diggs. And or instead of using the worksheet, you can simply draft a persona like writing a short story or a novel. There's no one way to write a persona, but if you don't start, of course, they never get written. Now, if you haven't opened it, please be sure to open the article on building personas that Frank put together. He has a good description of how to build a persona. There's examples of short personas that were drafted in this article, so you can see how they get drafted and some of the elements that make a persona useful. So we received a question from one of our participants earlier that said, I would like to get more info on creating personas. This seems difficult, but really intriguing as a way to address customer needs. The way I've interpreted it so far, which may be wrong, is we are making these people personas up. We are making them up as we think the clients would be, look like, act, etc. From there, we are making assumptions and decisions based on what we think. Then we go out and test our personas versus the real world. Is this right? Well, Frank responded to this to our participant saying, in order to write effective personas, you need to have spent time with your customers, talking with them, getting to know them, understanding not just their wants and needs, but also their struggles, fears, and aspirations. Because such knowledge is very imperfect, I like to embed the writing exercise as a series of PDSA cycles. When the initial drafts are what I think capture the essence of the people I am serving, the hypothesis, if you will. So your assignment, it'll be due on Wednesday. So this is not due today. it's not even due Tuesday, but Wednesday. You're drafting a PDSA, kind of like a PDSA persona. You're just drafting this persona. It doesn't have to be perfect. However, it's your first effort at making the persona for one of your individuals in that cross section of characteristics that you've selected. And then Frank suggests go out into the field to observe, interact, discuss, and understand more. You may or may not have time to do this with this particular assignment. So you're not being asked to run several PDSA iterations of your persona. You're just asked to draft one. And if you have an opportunity, discuss it with other people in the organization and talk about where it came from, how you selected that particular person, and then how you created them, and then what's possible to learn from that understanding of that person. And then followed by reflecting on what was learned and adjusting or rewriting. So each persona is not intended to capture a specific individual, but rather to capture what is important for them to achieve what they want to achieve, not just satisfy what they say they want or need. So this is interesting. We're trying to get to elements of our interaction with our customers that may or may not be able to be communicated directly by a customer, but might be communicated by their situation, their context, their struggles. And although fictional, they capture the circumstances and the context in which your customers are facing. And moving forward to design products or services for your customers, the personas provide faces and names on which to focus your development efforts. The personas you write will not be perfect, but hopefully will be useful in prioritizing product and service ideas and features. Otherwise, our development efforts can be quite self-serving and risk disappointing those they are intended to serve. Another way of approaching this is imagine you are creating a mini documentary about the individual in your persona. So you might ask yourself, what progress is this person trying to achieve? What are the functional, social, emotional dimensions of that desired progress? So there's lots of different ways that our persona is attempting to make progress. Maylee Diggs has multiple areas of her life she's trying to make progress in. For example, a job that occurs in a lot of people's lives is I want to have a smile that will make a great first impression in my work or personal life, or a struggle many managers might relate to. I want the sales force I manage to be better equipped to succeed in their jobs so that churn in staff goes down. And then what are the circumstances of this struggle? Who, when, where, and while doing what? I see the dentist twice a year and do all the right things to keep my teeth clean, but they never look white enough for me. Or it seems like every week another one of my guys is giving notice because he's burned out and I'm spending half my time recruiting and training people. So what's going on in this person's environment and circumstances? Sometimes mostly professional, but sometimes personal. And then what obstacles are getting in the way of that person making progress? For example, I've tried a couple of whitening toothpastes and they don't really work. They just rip off. Or I've tried everything I can think of to motivate my sales staff, bonus programs for them, offsite bonding days. I've brought them a variety of training tools and they still can't tell me what's going wrong. So this is an element of where you're being creative about what are the obstacles that my persona might be facing. And then are consumers making do with imperfect solutions through some kind of compensating behavior? Are they buying or using a product that imperfectly performs their job? So, are they making do with what you're producing? Are they being very successful with it? Are they cobbling together another workaround solution, sometimes called hacks or aftermarket add-ons? Are they doing nothing to solve their dilemma at all? For example, I bought one of those expensive home whitening kits, but you have to wear this awful mouth guard overnight and it kind of burns my teeth. Or I have to spend time making sales calls myself and I don't have time for that. And then how would they define what quality means for a better solution and what trade-offs are they willing to make? For example, I want the whitening performance of a professional dental treatment without the cost or inconvenience. So these examples are from Clayton Christensen's book, Competing Against Luck, The Story of Innovation and Customer Choice, that entire book is about jobs to be done. So they're using some elements of understanding a persona from that perspective of job to be done. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. Please take out your customer persona worksheet and begin to take elements of things that you want to make up about that person. You don't need to put their picture in there yet, but begin to fill it out and draft what it is that you're seeing there with for them. Okay, let me maybe I could pull that up. So it's pretty simple. The persona worksheet. You know, these are just elements that you're making them up. They're not facts, but they should fit the strata that you selected. So, you know, have this person fit within that strata. So my example of Maylee Diggs, you know, she fits the private sector, current member, and low quality management experience as we describe her. So what's their name? What strata they fit in? What's their position? These things aren't critical for you to fill out. However, what I found is it's really helpful to sketch these out, and then it's much easier to draft your persona. You can, if you have those skills, you know, make it up from scratch, but I found it's a lot easier to paste, you know, kind of cut and paste these things. And if you look at the persona that we showed with Maylee Diggs, I'll put that back. You know, you can almost see that how the worksheet was used to fill out those things. You know, like I put things in, I answered the questions in the worksheet, and then all of a sudden it's pretty easy to drop those into a description of what Maylee's doing. And you don't have to fill out every single one of these items. These are just, you know, ideas, placeholders. It's fun sometimes, you know, like when I was creating Maylee, I actually went on Google Earth and looked for, all right, I'm going to put her in the Grand Rapids area. I'm looking for a company over there that she might work in. And then I also I looked for a college that her husband might work at. You know, like sometimes you can have fun with it if you have time. If you don't have time, you know, that's not critical. However, you do want to place it, make sure that you understand what are the goals that your persona has, both in their current job, their career. You want to understand that they also have a life that has goals, and it might either support or conflict with some of those other things. So you want to deal with what are the struggles that they might be facing. Okay. Any questions? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to work on this. All right, let's take a moment here. I know you still have lots to do. So who wants to share something about their persona? So I'll start with Tyler. So what combination of strata have you chosen?
I chose employed. So one of my strata was, are they currently employed or not? Are they seeking employment? And then lives in a rural area. So place was one of my strata, even though
Mhm.
I kind of had a question about that. Is there a good way to represent something that has more than a binary? Like, because I would like to do like urban, rural, suburban as the basic breakdown of place, but this activity kind of seems to lend itself only to things that have two options.
Yeah, you can update you could create a spreadsheet version of that. So you've got the three combinations there. Yeah, the faces one is limited. In fact, when you try and do above 3 lines, it almost gets
Yeah.
too cumbersome. And so I would suggest, trying it with the grid that gets developed on the spreadsheet.
Okay, can do. Anyway, so my strata was employed, lives in a rural area, and lives independently. And then some more information. I just made up that they work at a bank in an entry-level position. So as a teller, their goals are to remain employed. I kind of made up the scenario that they had been involved in a car accident. And so they were having pain and fatigue from their position from standing all day. So they sought MRS to develop some solutions or accommodations for what they were experiencing in their position. And then like their career goal would be just to remain employed at the bank and living independently, and possibly advance into like management positions at the bank there.
This is great. So you started to include some of the key things that ought to be in your persona. Is that you've got your goals, you've got their circumstances, and the struggles they're dealing with at the moment. So that provides a lot of useful information about that persona. So that's really good. Anything else you have? I mean, that's a lot already. So
the only other thing I said was that they didn't have any issues performing the tasks of their job or experiencing trouble in keeping up with the tasks. It was really just related to the pain they were experiencing from standing. But
okay.
That's all I have right now. I'll flesh it out a little more when I put it into paragraph form.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm not expecting anybody to be finished at all at this point. I'm just looking for what have you got so far. So Ashley, share what you've got so far.
I have not a lot, but I have a non-scientific career strata with primary English was my category, and the position I put supervisor, organization level at entry level. I put Johnson & Johnson marketing position, less than 2 years. And I also have education at Florida A&M. And then I put that the person lives with her elderly parents and is dealing with that so far.
Yeah, that's great. So there's some struggle there that you've got. You've got some understanding about where they are in their career. And you also want to include, did you say anything about their particular goals? You said they want to rise up in the management ranks. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So this is good. So these are good examples of how to develop and proceed with that. So I think you're on the right track. Anybody way off of what we just heard from Ashley and Tyler? Or pretty much along the same lines? Okay, good. So I'm going to scroll through this. So our assignments that are due today are that your Teach to Learn and the plan for your PDSA number 3. Persona work is due Wednesday. So please continue working on this. this is one of those that you don't want to put aside and forget about. You want to, if you're going to work on it, please schedule time to do that, or just continue with the time you have left today to work on it. And then update your theory of knowledge mind map with the 2 quotes that we'll be looking at. So customer persona development, clearly you haven't finished it at this point. So it'd be an interesting conversation. You can talk about a variety of aspects of not only what you've learned about personas so far. I recommend reading the article before you have your teach to learn conversations. That will give you some better grounding in the topic, as well as you can share, of course, your experience trying to begin to develop a persona that you're working with. And then applying to your project is your planning work. 2 very simple quotes for today. One is from Dr. Deming. I make no apologies for learning. This is a great quote. There's a variety of ways that you can use it and interpret it. And then Taiichi Ono, who is considered the father of the Toyota production system, says progress cannot be generated when we are satisfied with existing situations. So 2 very simple but profound quotes for today. So that's it for today. This is good. This is a good start you've got on your personas. I appreciate the work you've been doing.